Welcome back to the Behind the Well Show. Roger Abel in studio with Elias Randall. I'd get a kick out of the first thing we're going to talk about today, Elias. We're not even going to catch up. Revenge spending.
Sounds scary.
I didn't even know what this was until I read the article. But I'm like, what's revenge spending?
To me, it sounds like just you're YOLOing.
I mean,
you can only live once, so you better go for it, I guess.
You got mad at somebody, so you're going to revenge spend? I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. It doesn't sound like YOLO, but I think that's what it is based upon the article. Did you actually read this article on CNBC?
Yeah, I read it, and some of my thoughts were, well, no matter what you want to call it, you can revenge spend, you can only live once, you can do all these things, but there's nothing stopping you. I just don't believe people can't have the lifestyle they want and be an adult with their money. That's just one of my core beliefs. I think everyone can be an adult with their money and have lifestyle. I know everyone in this room finds a way to do it, so.
Don't you think that maybe YOLO is code word for I don't want to be responsible and I don't want to be an adult?
Yeah, like
YOLO, when someone tells me YOLO
is something I would say before I buy a pull tab. Like I'm not gonna go out and buy a lot of pull tabs, but let's say I'm somewhere and they have a machine and I'm having fun. Yeah, I might buy one. I'm YOLOing.
You had 14 beers. If I ever hear that come out of your mouth, I know it. But here's what's ironic about this. You know, credit card debt is we're over $1 trillion in credit card debt. People don't seem to care. They did a poll. Of those surveyed, 27% said they would go into debt to travel. Okay, maybe get that, but not really. You have to go so bad you have to go into debt. But here's what's even more unreasonable. 14% said they would go into debt to dine out, to go into debt to go to a restaurant. And 13% said they would lean on their credit cards to go to the theater or see a live sporting event or attend a concert.
Yeah, so that's like, if you really think about it, that's pretty bizarre.
That's bizarre that people actually would willingly and knowingly, because these people knowingly, 14% of the people knowingly said, I will go into debt to go to a restaurant or go to some event. That's bizarre.
I would never do something like that.
I could see.
I suppose if I didn't have anything left and I had a credit card and it was either starve or eat, I would use my credit card to go buy something to eat.
But that's not the scenario. Here's why. It's not starve or eat. It's eat at home and pay for it or get into debt and go to a restaurant.
Yeah, that's
you ever seen a homeless person?
Not a good decision.
They're not trying to go to the restaurant. They're just trying to feed themselves. Like, think about that. These people are choosing to go into debt just so they can go out to eat. And quite frankly, we go out to eat a lot. Food's not that good. No. It's not that good. I mean, yeah, is it convenient? Sure. It's not that good. And people can make the argument that, well, there's just one of us. It's just me, so it's less expensive to go out to eat because I'm just, one person versus making a meal that feeds 3 or 4. Well, you have leftovers. I mean, I get that argument all the time. It's just me. It's just cheaper to go out to eat. No, it's not. A $14 burrito is not less expensive than going to the grocery store. Buy a rotisserie chicken for $5.99.
Burrito into 4 pieces and have 4 meals. No one does that.
Who cuts a burrito into 4 pieces? I mean, I could see 2 halves, but I don't think there's too many Pancheros burritos that are only getting half eaten.
No.
So I thought that was ironic that people willingly and knowingly will go into debt to go out to eat, go to an event, and go on vacation. I could see people do that because vacation's gotten really expensive. You want to take your kids are young, you're going to Disney, you're floating some debt for 3 or 4 months while you pay it off because Disney's $15,000. It's not $300 or $1,000. It's expensive if you fly there.
Yes, and it is. Even a trip like that, is it fun? Yeah, it is. There's exciting things to do, but you're spending a lot of money to be in a huge crowd of people for a long period of time.
Do you think Disney is more for the parents than the kids?
What do you mean by that?
Is it more so the parents can see the enjoyment on their kids' faces?
Yes.
Because I feel like most kids would have just as much fun at home with a box.
You think? I know they do. Yeah. Well, and there's other ways to have the experiences. You know, I know the Disney on Ice show goes around. I know it comes to the Midwest. We've been to it.
That's actually really good.
They do. We have a convention center in our area that has a princess party we've been to. So, right, you don't have to go to Disney to have those experiences. But yeah, I do think a little bit sometimes as a parent you feel obligated to provide those happy memories or the experiences or being able to see them, you know, with a smile on their face. But there's ways to do that without the expense. And I can tell, so I've been to the Disney in Florida, also the Universal Park there with Harry Potter. And I am into that kind of stuff. Like I kind of like the fiction stories, and even like Harry Potter, I like that stuff for entertainment. But I do not like being in crowds. So there's also, when I do something like that, there's part of me that's thinking, we're spending a lot of money for me to be in a social situation that I don't like part of it. Like I don't like walking down a hall and I got to bump into everyone. Or you go to the Harry Potter world, you want to get a butterbeer. There's 18,000 people in line. So
What's
then
a butterbeer?
It's the drink that they drink. It's basically, it's almost like a cream soda, but then they put a cream, like whipped cream topping on it, basically. They're delicious. I had 2 when I was there. Anyway, I don't remember what we were talking about.
I mean, you caught me with butterbeer. It just shocks me that people would go into debt to do that stuff. But part of it is a lot of people, they look at like just financial literacy in general as just knowing how to do a budget. Like, think about it. If you said, hey, what's financial literacy? Someone would say, oh, yeah, I know how to manage my money, aka budget. There's a lot of other things that go into what financial literacy is. And I bring that up because April's Financial Literacy Month. So I've seen a lot of articles and different things out there. And I thought today it'd be good to discuss what financial literacy really means to people. And it's not just getting a handle on your budget. That's probably like the most basic step beyond understanding what a dollar bill is and what coins are, right? The next step is kind of getting a hold on your budget. But there's so many more things that go into what helps somebody become financially literate and helps them in their life to feel better about money and the economy and all the different things happening outside of their world that they can't arguably control a lot of it.
There are, and I think we have found with the people we work with, as people kind of grow and understand their financial situation, understand the things we do to help them and all of that, I think their confidence grows over time, where really finance, and especially here in America, where, you know, our especially our capital markets, our money system, very complex, right? It's not just you know, it's not like a bartering system, right? Or it's not just you produce a good, you sell it. Money can be used in a lot of different ways to create other money, and people can borrow it. It's just a very complicated, and it's great too, because you just look around and we have such a nice place to live, right? Well, part of that is because we figured out how to have something of value that then people can use to have a better life with discretionary spending and lifestyle and all those things. But it's very robust, and it's it can get very complicated. But I think as people learn, their confidence grows and they're not so uncomfortable.
Elias, CNBC, they recently did a study. It's called Your Money Financial Security Survey, and they polled people in 9 countries. Of the people surveyed in the U.S., 70% reported feeling very or somewhat stressed about their personal finances, which as soon as I see that number, I think to myself, it seems high, but then it doesn't seem high. And you know why? It seems right in line with all of the other numbers and metrics that we look at regarding people's confidence with their money or finances.
Please share.
26% of the people have a financial plan. 26%. I don't think it's even that 26%. The 26%, I don't even think they feel better because they have the plan. That's just the percentage of the population that wants to like get involved with their money. Most people don't want to be involved with it, right? They make it, they spend it, but that's all they want to do with it. But here's what's ironic out of that survey. Top sources. I feel like if you asked me, mine would be completely different than any of these three. These three wouldn't be in my top 3 money concerns. Here's the top 3. Inflation, 65%. Economy, 35%. Interest rates, 27% of the people. Do you know why none of these would be in my top 3?
I can guess, but you can tell us too.
I guess. I think you'll be right.
Why these are not in your
my top 3?
They're not things you can control.
There you go. If people lived in the world which they could control, they would feel so much better about money. This also shows me that people are definitely influenced by media. These are all the hot button media topics. And if you start to look at platforms where people consume their news, I bet if you polled people today versus 25 years ago, how many of you watch the nightly news?
Plenty of people do.
You think today, you think more people today watch the news than they did 25 or 30 years ago?
That's a good, probably, is it less now?
It has to be less. Elias, my grandparents, they never missed the news. I never used to miss the news. I don't watch the news now because we're getting information and news pumped to us all day long. Just look at what we're doing. People are getting the information from YouTube, from us, or they're getting it from a podcast. We're getting our information from the internet, right? We go get an article. Nowhere in here do we say we watched the local news last night or the nightly news. By the time it gets on the news, it's old. So I think people are consuming most of their information on some type of an internet media platform. And if I went and looked at what most of the content is about on, let's say, YouTube, it's about these 3 things: inflation, economy, interest rates.
It is. And, I think with feeling financially secure, a couple things. When you boost your knowledge, that can be empowering. So the more you understand, the higher your confidence will be. And it's different for everyone to feeling secure. Like you just mentioned, those are the top 3 concerns for people who respond to this survey, and they're not even on your radar of concerns, right? So being financially secure for you is much different than someone who would answer those questions that way. And it might just maybe an exercise that'd be great for people is, well, I mean, clearly I believe everyone who wants to be serious about their money should work with a firm and an advisor that focuses on financial planning. If you're not willing to do that, maybe set a baseline of what has to happen in my life to feel financially secure. And that can almost be, that's minimal. That's like a minimum buy-in. Okay, well, if I do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to feel financially secure. And that might be you could almost, what would that be? Maybe like financial planning light. Like that's at least a step down the right path, right? To feeling better, having more knowledge, and then defining in your own life, how is this going to work for me and what are the things I'm going to do? And I think the reality is it's not everyone needs to be a millionaire, needs to have all this money and have all this stuff. Some people, if they have no debt, a job they enjoy, and a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks, they're good. Other people need more. Other people need less. But being a little intentional about what you need is going to get you down the path to where you want to go.
That's a good point because...
Are you ready to take control of your financial future? The financial professionals at Premier Investments and Wealth Management are the guides you've been looking for. Picture this, a financial plan tailored exclusively to you. Our team of experienced professionals will work closely with you to understand your aspirations and develop a personalized roadmap to get you there. Whether you're dreaming of retirement, buying a new home, or sending your kids to college, we've got the tools to give you confidence in your financial life. We'll help you navigate saving and investing, retirement income, and tax strategies. Our job is not just about making money. It's about helping our clients make smart choices. We'll provide you with the tools and knowledge to confidently steer your financial ship toward a brighter future. Are you ready to embark on your financial journey with confidence? Visit www.btwealthshow.com or click the link in the description of this podcast. Your financial future awaits.
Security looks different to everybody, right? Some people having no debts. I mean, that's the commonality. If you look at all the surveys out there, having no outstanding debts is the number one thing that makes people feel secure. Hey, I don't owe any money. 60% of the people say not owing money makes them feel secure.
And it should. When you have no debt, that you've eliminated a lot of risk.
For some other people, though, it's a high level of savings, or they have passive income, or they have a fully funded retirement, or they have great health insurance. There's different things that make people feel secure. You'd be surprised when we talk with people at our initial meeting and ask them questions what the number one concern usually is. It's health insurance or long-term care. Think back to the meetings you run. Hey, what are you concerned about the next 3 years? Well, I'm concerned about where I'm going to get my health insurance. Or I'm concerned about, what happens if I'm sick for a long time in long-term care.
Yes, that's a common major concern for folks either transitioning to retirement or retired.
And for a lot of people knowing what it's going to be, right? There's this gap of if you have a person who is 60 years old and going to retire, they have a 5-year gap until they're on Medicare. They're concerned about that 5 years because it's unknown. And they have no knowledge of it. Their knowledge of health insurance was, well, I worked at an employer for this period of time and they provided the health insurance. Now I have to go to this scary unknown world because I have no knowledge of the Affordable Care Act or things that are available in the health insurance world. So I have this 5-year period of time that's going to be scary, and then I get Medicare. And then they feel all better once they get on Medicare.
That's a good point. And when you are on an employer plan, and I'm not saying this is bad, but there's no thinking or decision. I guess there's one decision, yes or no. Do you want this?
Yeah,
but
maybe you have to pick a deductible.
Right, but totally different than I'm going to call a health insurance agent. I'm going to figure out my options, right? Our business is complicated. I don't know a lot about it, but I know the health insurance business is very complicated too. It's not something I deal in every day, but people start to navigate the website and the choices. It feels like unlimited choices. Well, how do you start to pick, and what are you supposed to do?
Well, I think one of the things that helps people become much more comfortable with money and their finances and being financially literate is education. When we look at the families and individuals that we work with, typically the individuals who have spent some time researching this stuff, but not to the point where they think they really know how to do it, because that's the whole learning curve. But the ones who spend a little bit of time familiarizing themselves with this seem to just have a much higher sense of financial confidence. And I'm not talking about a do-it-yourselfer. I'm talking about someone who understands what an IRA is, a Roth IRA, a 401k, what a mutual fund is, just general stuff puts people at ease. Remember when we talk about risk capacity for people?
Yes.
Risk capacity versus risk tolerance. Most people, if you ask them what their risk tolerance is, that's how they feel. That's their feeling about risk and money. If you have no knowledge of why you own an investment, I believe that most people default to a conservatism mode. Just, hey, I don't understand how this works, so I'm a little scared of it. So my risk tolerance is a 3. Because they're not educated about it. They don't have any knowledge. As we help build them knowledge and show an individual why they should have a particular portfolio and why that gives them the best outcome. That's risk capacity. And we show them, hey, based upon your results, you should have a portfolio that has 60 or 70 or 80% stock, whatever the number is. Their risk tolerance goes up because they understand why they own it. Their conviction goes up because they understand why they own it. If someone buys the S&P 500 and they don't understand why they own it, that'll be the first person that sells when times get tough.
That will. And there's confidence that comes with knowing those things and understanding.
And that's why I think just more knowledge makes people more confident in everything really money related.
So so what are some things that people can do to feel more financially secure?
Talk about money. Just talk about it with people. I'm not saying go get stock advice. Just talk to people about it. If you have a friend, say, hey, what do you think about this? Bounce ideas off people. You could seek advice from a planner. Hey, I don't understand how this works. Teach me some basics. And most good planners could teach you the basics of what a Roth IRA is, a traditional IRA, a 401k, a mutual fund, an ETF. They could teach that to you in 20 minutes or less.
Yes, the basics,
if
right?
They're good if they have a good ability to just give you a basic understanding of things, they should be able to do that in 20 minutes or less. But ultimately, once you have a little bit of knowledge of what the words are, the acronyms, then you just got to get a plan done. That's going to give you the most financial security, is getting a financial plan done. And it doesn't have to be this very complicated 300-page plan. It could just be our one-page Premier Vision document, which for young individuals just says, hey, my goal is X. Am I on track? Yes or no? What do I need to do to get on track? And just get on the right glide path. And then as you get older, it becomes more complex and more things get added into it. But if you're under 40, this is the time to just say, hey, am I even remotely on track to accomplish my goals? And if I'm not, I've got 20 plus years to fix those problems.
And I think the kind of the path and the journeys you're going to go on in what you just described, talk about money, seek some advice, and make a plan, right? And you just mentioned, and I tell people this, especially the first time I meet someone, a potential new investor, a couple, whoever it is, we can cover the basics. I mean, I could be in an elevator with someone and they could ask me basic finance questions, right? I can answer those. Now, if someone, a stranger who I know nothing about, says, hey, I'm thinking about XYZ investment. Do you think that's a good investment? It could be the world's greatest investment. I don't know if it's good for you, right? So I think what you're describing, we're going from 101, the basics. If you start to work with some people and get a professional to help you, now your situation's kind of advancing, your knowledge is growing, your confidence is growing, and what do all of our clients want? Regardless of the path, they want a successful outcome, right? That's what we're setting them up for.
That's what everybody wants. They want a good outcome.
I would think. I don't think anyone would plan to have a bad outcome.
No one's ever come here and said, I want a crappy outcome. And outcomes are different for everybody. They're different for everybody. Like a successful outcome for one person is different than the other person. I'm going to give you an example. I met with a family recently, and they've done a great job saving. 2 pensions, 2 Social Securities, no kids, no beneficiaries. 60 years old, let's say. And our talk was, why would you have any money left other than a small amount when you're 80 or 85?
That's a great question.
I mean, pensions and Social Securities are going to be like $120,000 a year. I said, if you were out of money, out of cash, when you're 80 and you still had this $120,000 or $140,000 whatever is coming in, are you okay? They're like, well, we'll never spend that. I said, so why wouldn't you start spending it now? And I said, and spending it doesn't mean you have to blow it. I said, if you want to be charitable, know it's a lot more fun watching someone get the money than giving it when you're dead. And they kind of had this like shift. They're like, yeah, you're right. Why wouldn't we go do all the things we want to do the next 15 or 20 years of our life versus wait until we're 85 and who knows what happens?
And even in the situation, giving away money, if there's an organization that you like and you believe in, you're going to give money money to them. Well, all the organizations have fundraising events, right? So isn't that kind of part of the fun? You give away some of your wealth. You get to go to the nice dinner, hear the speaker and the presentation, and yeah, they're probably going to ask you for a little bit more, but they already know that you feel good about giving money to them.
So, but for them, the outcome isn't to preserve all this money. Their best outcome is the perfect financial plan, which is to pass away with $1 left. Right? I mean, that's the perfect plan.
50 cents.
But the
for
whole
me,
idea
personally.
for this couple is just totally different than for a guy I was just on the phone with. He said, my goal is to leave. Literally, he interrupted our show, and I had to take the call. He said, my goal is to leave each one of my kids $1 million. Completely different outcome. That's success to him.
And totally different. We're preserving wealth at that spectrum where we are giving away on the.
I think that's what's so neat about what we do is we get all these. I think people just think we do the same thing all the time, but those two things are fun for me. They're two completely different scenarios that we get to help people make decisions on so that they're successful.
And what we do, that's the same every time, is the philosophy that guides our decisions, right? Our firm clearly subscribes to certain philosophies because you can't. It's not just every situation is unique, but we still need guiding principles to get people to the outcome, whether it's preserve everything or give it away.
For sure. One of the number one ways that people can get their head around being comfortable with money is you have to have a budget. It doesn't matter what kind of a budget it is. It can be, a zero-based budget. It doesn't matter. You have to have an idea where your money's going. And I think that most people don't commit to this, and I don't think they spend enough time on it. I think most people just say, hey, I have X, I spend whatever, and then it's gone. Like, I think about clients that I've worked with that know to the penny what they're spending, and they don't have a lot of money coming in, but they have a nice life because they know to the penny where every dollar's going. Then I have others who have lots of money, but they have no idea where the money's going. And one thing I talked to my wife about this, and this wasn't so much about a budget. In fact, it wasn't about a budget at all. Just as individuals, we're always trying to predict what the future holds. Do you do that? Do you this in 2 years, do this because this will happen? Some of it you just have to live for today and take care of it, not worry about what's going to happen in the future because we don't know.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, I think. I think it's ultimately good to have some sort of vision for yourself of where you want to go, but from a day-to-day basis, I'm much more concerned about living my life today or living in the present, right? Easier said than done. Everyone has things they dwell about and think about, but I think if you can back it down to what needs to happen today for that vision to happen, you're going to be a lot more successful.
I do that a lot. You know me. I'm always thinking down the road. But sometimes when you think down the road, it stops you from doing things today because you believe you know what the outcome's going to be in 2 years.
I agree with that.
Like, you're like, well, this could happen, so we should wait to see if this happens. We all know.
Yeah, but you're going to do a lot of waiting if you do it that way.
Right, you do a lot of waiting. And we all know people. I know people that they don't ever think about the future at all. They do it on a whim, and it seems reckless and irresponsible. And guess what? It always kind of works out. Like, I'm serious. Like, I know one individual that I'm like, you never think about what's going to happen in a year or two, but it always just kind of seems to work out. So I always try to have that balancing act. But one of the things people need to do with their budget is, not try to predict the future and focus on, hey, this is what we have coming in today. How do we make this last? And I think the number one way for people to conquer this budget is to get some uninterrupted time and energy to work on it. And you have to work on it with your partner if you have one. And that means, hey, the kids go to bed. I know at our house when the kids go to bed, I don't want to do any work. But that's probably the only time you can put some serious work into forming a budget with your partner, because nothing serious is going to happen with a couple of kids running around and making dinner and getting interrupted, because you need to think about where you want your money to go.
And that's challenging, especially when you have a family, right? Because there's unlimited distractions. Everyone needs something. So it's easier said than done, but if you have some uninterrupted time, it's going to be pretty productive. In addition to having maybe a scheduled time or uninterrupted time to work on a budget, here's some other thoughts I had thinking through this. And understanding at the beginning, you're not going to be perfect the first time you do it. So let's say you have a budget and the month is going along, you get outside of the budget and do something, you spend money you weren't planning on something you really don't need, and now you feel some sort of regret. Okay, it's in the past now, right? It's done. So can you kind of internalize that and move on? And it worked to improve, right? I think a lot of times when people set out to do things, any hurdle or hiccup or a negative thing, if you let too much negative thoughts creep into your mind, then that's going to start to be your reality. Okay, wasn't supposed to do that, did it, time to move on. Another practice I think would be good for people, if you're going to commit to doing something, do it that way for 90 days. You may get 45 days in and think, you know what, I don't really like doing it this way. Maybe I should tinker. Give it a little bit more time. And I think I fall in that trap sometimes where I tinker with my process too much, right? Well, I didn't really like how it went that time, so I'm going to change a little bit. Maybe just stay committed to what you thought. And then after a period of time, instead of tinkering along the way, maybe say, hey, at the 90-day mark, I'm going to rethink this whole thing. But until then, I'm just going to do it the same way every time. Probably a decent way to do it. And then also be happy with, if you're achieving some level of what you set out to do, maybe it's only 60 or 70%. Sometimes good enough is okay to keep a positive attitude and keep kind of building yourself through it.
Oh, I think if you're 80%, that's probably good enough most of the time.
I would agree.
Seriously, like I think about just how I run this business. If someone can do it 80 or 85% as good as me, why would I do it?
Yeah, you're saying in the business.
Yeah, it's just, but in life in general, you don't have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect.
I wish I was.
I know people who think they're perfect.
It would be nice to be perfect.
It's not. If you can operate at a high level of accuracy or efficiency, like it's not, there's nobody that has a perfect budget. There's no way someone for 12 months goes and they never overspend $1. If you're within 90%, think about it within 90%. If you have a joint household bringing home $10,000 a month, 90% actually, that's within $1,000. That means you didn't have a random event pop up for $1,000.
Things are going to work out.
They're going to work out good.
You'll be okay.
People get in trouble when their accuracy is 40 or 50%.
Yeah, right. But that goes back to probably some more of the basics. Right? If you're only hitting 40%, you're not executing some of the basic things right.
Yeah, we should call that margin of error is really what that is. If your margin of error is 10% or less, you're doing great, even 20%. But if it's 50, that's still gambling. Think about when we do a financial plan, we're looking for an 80% positive outcome. Margin of error is 20%, right? Mm-hmm. We just want to make sure people are on the right track. Elias, for our closing segment, this year we're challenging blanket financial advice. We've coined 2024 the year of personalized advice. So on every podcast, we're going to take a common blanket advice and see what we think about it. But this week we're going to talk about market pullbacks. When the market has a drawback, many people start to get fearful and pull their money out of the market, and they believe that they can be market timers. And if anybody's listened to our show for any period of time, they know that we believe that can't happen. But I've got a graphic, and I don't know if anybody, number one, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the graphic. If you're listening to this on the podcast, maybe we can put a link in the description to it. But it just shows the cost of trying to time the market. And everybody wants to be a market timer. I won't say nobody, but very, very few people can do it. Even myself, there's times where I think I can time the market. I feel like we're referring to the stock market right now. I feel like people have been trying to time the housing market. It's the same thing. You are not going to be able to time the market.
You won't. There's never going to be an easy way to do it. And I think there's even times where, do we get to points in just talking the stock market? Are there times where it's easy to think, you know what, it would be reasonable for a 10 to 15% drawdown right now, which really would be within like an annual average? And how many, but just let me ask you this, how many times throughout the year do you think, yeah, or maybe today, or not today specifically, but we have a trading day that's down 1% or more, and we start thinking, you know, maybe this is the start of our 10 to 15% drawdown that I think would be reasonable to have. And then how many times are you right and how many times are you wrong?
You know what it makes me think about? What we
What?
just talked about, predicting the future. It makes you wait and wait and wait until you miss your opportunity.
It does, and that's really the reality of bull markets, and especially right now when we're back in a technical bull market that's grinding higher. Think of all the people that waited and kept money on the sidelines. It gets hard to get back in.
So 2 thoughts on that. I was listening to The Compound with Josh Brown and Batnick the other day,
Okay.
and they were talking about the number one thing Batnick learned getting his CFA was when the market's hard to buy, it's typically the time to buy. When you don't want to buy the market, it's probably the time to buy. Once the market gets easy to buy, why is it easy to buy? Right? It's easy to buy when it's down 10 or easier. But it could go down 20 then. And then is it hard to buy when it's down 25? Yeah. You know why? People are really fearful it's going to go down more.
Yeah, I guess, and probably easier. Do you think? But don't. If the market's down 25%, doesn't it become easy for some people?
For the few that understand it and have a long-term time horizon, yes. But if you don't understand how the market works and market cycles and, you know, bear market recoveries and some of the other technical stuff that we look at and we understand, no, you're really scared. You think the world's falling.
So, and that would be hard to buy if you think the world's falling apart, you're going to have a hard time.
Well, the market's not down 25% unless something bad in the world's happening.
That is true.
Think about the last time it was down 20%. Well, what happened? We had massive inflation through the roof. Before that, it was COVID. Before that, great financial crisis. I mean, people thought during the great financial crisis, the U.S. economy's toast. So if it was that easy, everybody would have bought the market when it was down 40%. But the reality was people were bailing out when it was down 40% because they couldn't lose anymore.
And it's easy, with that question, it's easy for me to look at the situation and go, yeah, for sure, I would have bought. But the reality is for me,
in the heat of the moment, you don't know that.
Right. And then during the great financial crisis, I was a college student. So I wasn't even a real adult yet.
Well, here's the cool thing about the chart we've got up. It's going back to January 2003 through December 2022. So this is excluding last year's pretty phenomenal market. But the value of $10,000 invested into the S&P 500 January 2003, had you never made a change to your portfolio. Literally, you put $10,000 in it and you never opened it up. You never even looked at a statement. You forgot you had it. Turned into $64,844. If you would have missed out on the 10 best days, which let me ask you a question. When do the best days come?
Single days, typically after a terrible day.
There you go, right? It's volatility. If you would have missed out on the 10 best days, you'd have only had 29,000. You missed out on the 20 best days, 17,000. The 30 best days you missed out on, 11,700. If you missed out on the 40, 50, or 60 best days, you had a negative return when you could have done nothing and 6x'd your money.
Whenever we look at, especially these charts and examples of the cost of timing when it's laid out this way of missing missing best days. It's really always, and I've seen similar charts to this many times, but it's always shocking to me how quickly the value you can obtain goes down.
It's why the average investor always underperforms, because they get in their 401k and they make a change. I mean, it's probably why a lot of the target date funds work out for people. Are they the most efficient investment? Probably not. But they probably work out for people because people don't feel like they have to tinker with it.
A lot of times they don't, and it's being rebalanced internally. Yeah. Just all the right things are happening. That's a good point.
All right, so here's some of the best days. October 13th of 2008, October 28th of 2008, April 6th, November 13th, 2008, November 24th, 2008, November 21st, 2008. So if you got scared in 2008 and got out of the market, guess what happened?
You missed out on a lot of the best.
You missed out on a lot of the very best trading days. So the old adage is, I know people think they can time the market. The reality is you're not going to. I don't care who you are. And the old adage is just buy it, buy good investments and hold on to them for a long time that are within your risk capacity or your risk tolerance, and they're likely going to work out if you do that.
I certainly hope so.
You have any other closing remarks for today's show, Elias?
All right. Thank you for listening.
If you're not already doing this, please follow us on social media. We're on YouTube, X, Facebook, and then our podcast. And if anybody listening would like their one-page Premier Vision document, you can visit btwellshow.com or click the link in the description. I want to thank everybody for listening.